pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you, people.
Thank you.
So typically we have a roll call, and the secretary's here. There was an illness in staff. And typically we ask for a approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes of the last meeting?
I haven't seen.
I can even tell you.
I haven't seen the minutes, so can't approve what this is.
Yeah, no, I haven't moved it.
There was a minute. Hey.
Already started the meeting.
I'm sure.
Thank you for showing up. We're asking for an amendment to the minutes of the last meeting, but I don't think we were submitted.
Are they in your folders? Did we check there? Well, let's check there.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I think we wanted to take formal review of this now. So if there are any amendments, we'll address that at the next meeting. Chris, you want to take the roll call on here?
I don't see the minute.
No, they're not in there. All this is in there.
All right. Mark Lodi,
President.
Gary Guglielmetti, Alan Bella,
Here.
Christian Lynch, Henry Williams.
Present.
There you go.
Okay, the only thing on the agenda is the an interpretation for the leeway project.
Yes,
Correct.
correct. Well, appeal, but sure.
It's an appeal.
It's now an appeal, it's not an interpretation.
The words, I think, are interchangeable. They might.
It's an appeal for interpretation.
Okay, so, and is there, my phone is not working, I don't know if that's important.
Well, if you ask Joyce, it's the most important thing.
Which?
If you ask Joyce, that's the most important.
Clarification.
The red one.
What do we got here?
Red.
Well, this application is from the adjacent landowner, Jimmy Army. So there's some controversy as to whether or not the zoning board has standing to hear this interpretation, application, whatever you want to call it. In my view, if we're being asked by the planning board to issue an interpretation, we're going to issue it.
No, you're not.
We're not.
No.
Oh,
So what this is, the planning board during their meeting last month approved the site plan with a host of conditions that Leeway submitted.
So the
For
first question.
intent in the event he.
So the first question I have is if the planning board has already approved the permit, then does our decision have any standing whatsoever?
Of course it does. Of course it does. So the application before you is a third-party appeal. A neighboring parcel holder is appealing my determination that the event use when accessory to hotel, motel, or lodge development is allowed. So they disagree with my determination that it's allowed. So that's, I believe, what the appeal
That's this letter.
is based on.
And that was the basis of the planning board's decision.
It was a factor of their decision, yes, that my determination that the event use was allowed the continuation of the review of that site. And yes, of course, if this board disagrees with me, then that would essentially negate that site plan approval.
Okay. So we have a formal request.
Well, this appeal for interpretation was prior to the planning board's decision.
Yes, it was, but the town's attorney said that the planning board did not have to stay their decision based on this appeal. That was brought to the attorney. Or they would not have moved forward.
Okay, so we're being asked to issue a determination as to whether,
Specifically, if my determination that the use is allowed is correct.
okay,
We've got to look at the appeal and what the appeal says for the interpretation. The appeal is specifically for 11610 of the zoning code, and also 11658.
Dash one.
11658-1 was not brought up during the planning board's review process. It was not something that I flagged during the review process. No written determination regarding that section of code as it pertains to this site plan approval was ever asked for.
Right, but I think the applicant is stating that the zoning code does not allow what the planning board just ruled on. And I also believe that they're stating that your interpretation of the code is incorrect.
Yes, of course, that's why it's an appeal.
So based on their appeal for interpretation, I believe we have to look at exactly what they're stating, and it all pertains to the
Right,
leeway.
but you're not reviewing the Leeway's project.
No, we realize that. We're reviewing the zoning code
Correct. So
and your letter.
then you can take from the fact that the planning board, neither the planning board nor myself were concerned with 11658, that it was the determination of both myself and the board, just through lack of action, that it was not considered an expansion.
Only
of the
because it
pre-
wasn't brought up, right?
No, because it wasn't addressed. Assume that. I can't speak for the planning board. For myself, I can say that 11658 is specifically about the expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use. I have a hard time calling something both accessory to and the expansion of an existing use. If this applicant could come to us, or come to my office requesting to add 4 rooms to a hotel, or add another lodge, they've got 2 of the lodge in the hotel, that's a clear expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use.
correct.
It was my determination that this use, as presented, the event use, was accessory to that use. I have a hard time calling something both an expansion of a use and accessory to the use. So that is why that determination was made.
Well, I think we have an issue with your determination.
Well, that's for
with
this board to
stating,
discuss,
with-
not-
with- yeah, no, but I just, with stating event use and using event use as a determination of the zoning code being, allowing leeway to expand their operation to a 40 by 60 wedding tent venue.
You're not talking about the tent or its size, you're only talking about the use.
So the fact that it's not a permanent structure is not relevant.
No, it wouldn't be. The structure itself, the site plan as presented, all of those details are for the planning board's review. That the planning board is how the municipality is given the opportunity to regulate and make sure that those things are up to code. This board's responsibility right now is to, specifically to the use.
Based on the events and the way they happened, I believe that maybe, in my opinion, that the planning board should have waited a week or a month for, and I know they're under some sort of calendar restraints, but they should have waited for us to do this determination prior to voting on whether the leeway has a right to continue with or operate a wedding venue in a 40 by 60 tent.
To my knowledge, the planning board was not under any calendar restraints.
Okay?
They received advice from town council that they could, should they choose, move forward with the review, and they chose to move forward with the review.
So regardless of how we rule on this issue before us today.
We can't rule on it today. We have to have a public hearing.
Oh, that's another issue.
We affect the public hearing.
I believe so.
Yeah, and I have another, I have an Article 2 definitions that come off the town website for structures. and it shows that tents are a structure. I just wanted to bring that up.
Again, not a part of this review.
Well,
Okay. So this, the size of the issue of the tent is not an issue, it's the usage.
Is 11658 dash 3, is that relevant to the part of this also, right? I know they cite dash 1, but dash 3.
They're citing 11658-1. So this is with the limitations listed in 116-58-1. But there's nothing specific in order to protect neighbors.
But we can consider that as part of the zoning, right?
This applicant is asking you to make a determination, here we'll read. Determination that event use as an accessory use to a hotel motel development is allowed in the town of Shandaken with site plan review and approval. The nature of the interpretation in a hotel motel use, 116-10, in a residential 1.5, a motel is permitted with a special permit only. Without a special permit, motel is a pre-existing non-conforming with limitations enumerated in 116-58-1. Additionally, any proposed uses should have a special permit, not merely site plan review, in order to protect the neighbors and the community. This appellant is asking for an interpretation of my determination, and I think she's here.
I am.
You're here. You can please if you'd like. I'm sorry, I don't
this
usually
is our
like.
meeting, Joyce.
I'm not Joyce.
I mean, Grace.
Thank you.
I just brought that up, because it kind of popped out in my mind, it says, dash 3, 11658-3, shall not be changed to another non-conforming use without prior approval by the Board of Appeals, and then only to a use which, as determined by the Board of Appeals, is of the same or more restricted nature.
Sure.
That seemed a little relevant to me.
It may, and if this board decides to review that, that's fine. The appellant is asking for interpretation of my definition, and I think the way that 116-58-1, in their opinion, should have been applied to the process. But again, she's here. She can speak for herself.
So what is, your argument now is that there is not the same or more, it is of the same or more, a more restricted, the same or more
It
restricted.
says it shall not be changed
use.
to another non-conforming use without prior approval. Yeah.
And it's my opinion that it is, that the use was accessory to the pre-existing non-conforming use.
I think that's where some of us disagree.
Right. And that's why we're here. So this board is looking to.
You say it's an event use, which isn't in the code.
I'm aware.
Well, we're aware too, that's what I'm saying. That's what you wrote,
That's the problem.
it's your decision.
There's nothing in the code that specifically permits this.
No, if you read my letter,
I got it right
the
here.
thought process, that's good. The thought process is, it's there. If you want, I know Hank can ask for copies of permits that have been issued supporting the use at other places.
Okay.
They're lengthy.
All right. Well, other zoning boards for other communities may offer a guideline, but they're not a precedent that we have to follow. Correct?
Well, that's for you to determine. The fact that your decisions don't set precedent is clear in law. Whether or not you take into consideration what I've listed in that letter is for this board to determine, not me.
Okay. So, how do we proceed?
I think we should proceed with the applicant to come up to the mic.
Me?
Yes, please, and state your name, your address. And,
I have something I wanted to read, if that's okay?
well, yeah, you could, but you
Sure.
have to come up to the mic, please.
Yeah, but come on to my so everybody can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I only found out about this hearing 2 days ago. I wasn't notified about it, so I had to pull this together in a couple of days' time, and I'm not a legal expert, and
Well, you're a recipient of your previous letter, so.
yes, and I
in
wanted to
fact,
be patient because I had to handwrite it because I couldn't get it input, and that's why you didn't receive it. But I will read it, and if you can just be patient because it does cover the material that I think is important.
Okay.
to me. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals members, my name is Jeannie Maloney, and I've lived next door to this motel for 40 years. My porch measures only 25 feet away from their primary motel building. That's 25 feet. The main structure has not been substantively changed since before 1985, when Charlie Davis purchased it and ran it as Lazy Meadow Court. Then it became Kate's Lazy Meadow. Even according to accepted definitions of hotel versus motel and the town code, it remains a motel. An accessory use of a motel is not a wedding/event venue, and so I strongly oppose the expansion of this business from a quiet motel to a wedding/event venue. The lawyers for the leeway want to equate the situation to that of Full Moon, the Emerson, Urban Cowboy, and Foxfire, which is contrived and misleading. Their buildings are not 25 feet away from their closest neighbors' buildings. There is considerable space between them. Also, the neighbors of Foxfire have been enduring the results of the allowance of weddings in their neighborhood for 10 years. Their many complaints have gone unheeded and unenforced by the town. It is my concern that this will happen to me and my neighbors. If the town has previously allowed these establishments to operate in violation, is it wise to say, let's continue permitting violations now because it has been done before? Importantly, and to be fair, my property and Leeway's is not similarly situated. Is each case proposal to be evaluated on its own individual merits? Lastly, this is a motel, not a hotel. There can be no comparisons, they are two different things. Shandaken Town Code 116-58A3 clearly states in regards to pre-existing non-conforming use that it, in quotes, shall not be changed to another non-conforming use without prior approval of the Board of Appeals, and then only to a use which, as determined by the Board of Appeals, is of the same or a more restricted nature, end quote. How is a wedding event venue with a 40 by 60 foot tent, catering facilities, tables, chairs, and all manners of implements of service, live band or DJ with amplified music, porta potties, 40 cars, and 75 guests slamming car doors, speaking over microphones, cheering, applauding, dancing, and celebrating for many consecutive hours, a less restricted use than a previously sleepy motel of 9 rooms. Further, the proposed project is plainly in violation of Shandaken Town Code 11658A1, which prohibits a non-conforming use from being, quote, enlarged or extended by more than 50%, altered, extended, reconstructed, or restored, and further states that external evidence of such use shall not substantially be increased by any means whatsoever. The construction of even a temporary venue, particularly one that would introduce new infrastructure, increased occupancy, noise, lighting, and traffic, is a substantial intensification of the existing non-conforming use. The installation of the temporary venue is further in violation of 11658A1 because the construction operation of the venue constitutes a substantial increase of the, quote, external evidence of such non-conforming use, including any temporary structures. And you guys said before that the tent is not a temporary structure, it's a structure, which that's not, the planning board was saying that the tent wasn't, but we were trying to say, yes, it is a structure, and I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, including any temporary structures installed to support the commercial venue, the presence of huge gatherings of guests, staff, amplified music, and increased vehicular traffic, including large trucks to bring in supplies, the tent, and all the many accoutrements to facilitate the wedding. 11658G states that the character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, in quotes, shall not be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibration, than with the operations of any permitted principal use, and shall not adversely affect the general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Shandaken. I am the next door neighbor. 25 feet, remember? I cannot help but be affected by the noise, monitors or not, party regulars, exhaust fumes, increased obtrusive lighting, cars and trucks going in and out for days at a time. To say this is not an expanded use defies logic and common sense. This is plainly an expanded use and not a mere accessory in a rural residential neighborhood. Leeway guests are already using my circular driveway as a turnaround and even driving on my lawn, mistaking my property as part of the motel. I am also very concerned about the environmental impacts of this project being permitted in on the Esopus Creek in the Catskill watershed behind my property in a FEMA-designated floodway. Recall the tragic flooding in Care, Texas recently, also in a floodway. Does the town really want to risk becoming liable for having permitted such endangerments? My home, which is actually at a higher elevation than the leeway, was completely engulfed in floodwaters all the way from the Esopus to Route 28 during Tropical Storm Irene in 2011. I walked the Lazy Meadow property with its owner, Kate Pearson, the next day. Her motel's devastation was far worse than that of my property. According to town code, accessory uses are not permitted in the floodway. And a predominant portion of this proposed accessory use falls in the floodway. And that's a quote from Cliff, from last week's meeting. A proposed wedding venue is not an accessory use because it is neither incidental nor subordinate to a motel, and its repeated seasonal operation constitute a permanent commercial expansion. As a pre-existing non-conforming use, zoning law prohibits expansion or intensification of a non-conforming use, for example, a wedding event venue, without a variance, because it adds a new commercial function that changes the character of the use. A wedding venue with 75 guests, plus all the extra factors previously enumerated, is not incidental to a 9-room motel, overwhelming the primary motel use. In addition, repeated seasonal use equals permanent use. Annual and/or regular weddings, proposed 13 a year, constitute a change in use. This undermines any claim that the venue is an occasional or temporary use. In conclusion, a wedding venue is not automatically an accessory use. Under New York State zoning law, an accessory must be customary, incidental, and subordinate to the principal use. The leeway fails all 3 tests. Hold on, I'm getting to it. Number 1, not customary. Hosting large-scale weddings is not a typical or expected function of a 9-room motel. Number 2, not incidental. The venue would accommodate 75 guests, catering staff, on-staff help, wait staff, band members, far exceeding the lodging capacity and creating a separate commercial enterprise. Number 3, not subordinate. The scale, frequency, and intensity of these weddings and their impact on extended weekends would dominate the property's use, overshadowing the previously quiet motel itself. The proposed venue's operation will certainly have community impacts. Increased traffic and noise, strain on the emergency access and infrastructure, even depending on the town police, paid for by taxpayer dollars to support their enrichment. I'm getting there. Just be patient with me. Hold on. Where did I leave off? Oh, to the bottom of page 2. Okay. Now, this was hard. I had to do this in 2 days, guys, and I'm not an expert at this. You know it's heavy-duty stuff.
Yes.
Okay, I did this one. Thank you for your patience.
Take your time.
Okay. 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 Disruption to neighboring residential properties. This was number 3. We are also the taxpayers. Some of us having been here for 40+ years. Our lives will be greatly affected. Our summer weekends will be all about the leeway. Our weekends are just about what they're doing next door, making noise, having traffic. Okay, our summer weekends will be all about the leeway and not our own desire to enjoy our homes in peace and quiet with our family and friends. These impacts are not customary nor incidental and directly contradict the purpose of residential zoning. Regulations created to protect the public welfare. One last thing. Even before last week's site approval, this was on, it wasn't last month's planning board meeting, it was last week's planning board meeting. Even before last week's site plan approval on 10/8, I heard from a reliable source that the Leeway had hosted a wedding in September. No tent or band, just bussing people in. At last week's meeting, it was mentioned that more weddings are already scheduled for October by representation for the Leeway. What I'd like to know is what happened to the 3 months' notice to the neighbors cited in the Leeway's 15-point mitigation plan. That was the mitigation plan that the planning board relied upon. In fact, Mr. Spada was so impressed by the 15 points. I'm wondering, just wondering, what happened to the 3 months' notice we were supposed to have been given?
Mitigation for what?
Mitigation, there was a 15-point mitigation plan saying that these are all the things we're going to do so that you're going to give us this approval. And that's what I'm wondering. It's kind of like, I already feel misled and lied to and it was misrepresented. It's kind of like relying on something that somebody says is going to be done and they're not already doing it. Kind of makes you a little wonder about, can you trust this situation?
Okay.
I say thank you to the ZBA members for your time and all the volunteer hours you selflessly give to the community. It can't be easy. And thank you for your patience. And that's how I feel. I did a lot of research.
Yeah, thank you. I did show up at your property today for a second, we were knocking on your door, didn't get a response.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I was, did you do that today? I was upstairs working on this because I was on a deadline because nobody told me that I was having this hearing. I put in for it, but nobody told me that I had it. I had to call the town. Nobody called to tell me, nobody emailed me, nothing. A friend of mine said, did you check? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not good on the internet. So then I found out that I was on the agenda. I was the only one on the agenda, but nobody told me. In fact, when I called the town last week, on Thursday, after last Thursday's meeting, an employee of the town would not let me speak to the secretary because I was going to ask the secretary that question. And I was not allowed to speak to the secretary to ask that question.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on with that either, but that's what happened.
All right.
And that's why this is a little bit jumbled.
We didn't take our internal service because it's an illness on our office staff.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, God bless.
Okay, so first of all, it's clear this is a motel, not a hotel. But I don't even think that makes any difference. I can't see any difference in the code relating this issue. The difference in relating this issue is to a motel or a hotel, so that's irrelevant.
Code lumps, it was my opinion that code puts motel, hotel, and lodge development use together.
Yes.
They lump it all as one
They do.
similar.
In review of your letter, and it seems like the Leeway, that project was delayed for months and months and months. Based on that, there was no decision by the zoning office.
Sure.
And 3 weeks ago, a decision was made by your office. And in the letter, and that probably participated the planning board moving forward with it. But in your letter, it says that you reviewed the zoning code. An accessory use or event use is an accessory to a motel, or lodge.
I said I reviewed the zoning code and it was my determination
Yes.
that event use is, that historically event use is considered accessory to hotel, motel, and lodge developments, absolutely.
So my question to you is, what exactly in the zoning code did you review that brought you to a determination?
The letter states that
if the
historically,
wedding venue- let me finish. That the wedding venue should be approved by the Leeway Motel or Motor Court.
absolutely didn't say it should be approved. Absolutely, I didn't say that.
You didn't say it should be approved.
No, of course not, I would never.
You're asking for determination.
it's your determination. You didn't say
That the use is allowed, not that it should be approved. I did not state that.
But the question I'm trying to get across to you is, what exactly did you review that brought you to the fact that the determination for event use is accessory to motel, hotel, and lodges? That's all. Because you obviously looked at certain parts of the code that brought you up to the realization that event use, even though it's not in the code, is usable for determining that the leeway can go forward with the wedding venue.
I believe the letter states that I reviewed the code, and historically, those with my job have treated the use as an accessory, as one that is accessory to those types of development. With these permits that you asked for and don't seem to want anymore,
I didn't say I didn't want them, they weren't available the other day. I sent you another email requesting, but we don't have to go through that right now because we're
I answered the email.
looking and reviewing the applicant's appeal for determination. I think that's what we should focus on. That is for us to look at and evaluate your answers to the questions I asked you.
I sent you, the emails answer your questions. I sent you another email today.
And I see it.
I sent it this morning at 10.
Yeah,
I have a copy.
Are all those permits from the town of Shandaken?
Yes, issued by zoning enforcement officers prior to I was in this position.
And all of those properties for these permits, are they non-conforming pre-existing, or are they just in residential neighborhoods or commercial lots?
All of them? Foxfire,
There's only 4 of them, right?
Foxfire was a pre-existing non-conforming use. They got a, well, I don't know what they got a special use permit for because the records have been misplaced by the office upstairs. The hotel use at Full Moon predates. They've gotten site plans approved, but that use I don't think specifically because it predates code. Who else? Urban Cowboy is a pre-existing non-conforming hotel lodge development. Yes. Full Moon and all 3 of those are located in residentially zoned districts, I believe. We'd have to double check that.
As there's a leeway. To my mind, that's irrelevant. We are not obligated to rule on precedent. We're obligated to rule on the individual merits of each individual case.
Good.
As per direction from the New York State.
But I think the great
Yeah,
thing
no,
is that how her determination came about was historically that's what they have done. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, that's a factor that we can consider, yes. So, before we can offer any vote or make a motion for any vote or any determination, apparently we need a public hearing.
Yeah.
Again.
But
Yeah,
before
there's-
that, there's concern here that I've not responded to the board's questions, and I want to know what it is you want from me so that I can do so.
That's on you.
Yeah, questions, I sent you another email, I guess, yesterday.
Yeah,
She answered you today.
and I
Well,
responded.
I didn't receive that, so I need time to review it, to see if you answered the questions that were asked properly. Because the first set of answers were very vague and
They were,
it didn't quite answer some of the questions.
Okay, so we can do that now, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
If this board wants answers to these questions, I can give them to the best of my ability.
okay.
Go ahead, we'll take that into consideration. Apparently we did not make a ruling today.
No, you can't, but if you want to be able to review everything that you're asking for before you set a public hearing, like we could. So he's asking, can I read the email?
Sure.
Okay, the ZBA is formally requesting an official interpretation from your office regarding specific sections of the zoning code 116-10 as it relates to accessory use tents, also 116-58A 1 and 3 as it relates to a non-conforming pre-existing motel in zoning district 1.5. To assist the board in its deliberations and ensure the correct application of the zoning code, we request that you provide a written interpretation of the following provisions. Zoning code 116-58A 1 and 3 we've discussed. Do you need anything further from me about how I came to the conclusion? Which is all you.
That, to me, the language in those,
No, I understand that you're not agreeing with what I'm saying, but have I made myself clear as my thought
I mean,
process?
do you consider those
Of course, I have to consider the code in its totality.
correct?
Okay, and in your expert opinion, what.
In my opinion, I had a hard time.
It seems to me that you lead me to believe that you're an expert. So
I don't know why that
Well,
is
it's
being specified right now, but sure, if you want to call me an expert, Hank, you
Yeah.
go right ahead.
Well, she's
Um,
an informed
Based
person.
on our previous deliberations, I consider you an expert.
I consider you an expert.
So
That's
in
very
any
kind.
event,
In my opinion, I had a hard time, I don't believe that the accessory use is an expansion of pre-existing non-conforming uses. My opinion that the pre-existing non-conforming use is hotel lodge development. Again, if they come to us requesting more rooms, or if they want to construct, make the rooms, even if they just wanted to make the existing rooms bigger, that would be an obvious expansion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this accessory use isn't an expansion. It's not a special permit use, it's a permit use by right. It doesn't require a special use permit, it is permitted by right, they just need site plan
one
approval.
of my questions kind of is based on that, is it says expansion by 50%. Now, 50% can mean a lot of things, and it means a lot of different things in different zoning codes. Does that mean expansion in square feet, or does it mean if there was a flood, a place caught on fire?
Again, it's my,
Would that be no more than 50% of the value of the property at the time of the disaster? What is it- what is the
I don't
value?
believe the question, in my opinion, the question's not relevant to what you're reviewing, so I don't know why we need to go
I don't
into
believe
it.
it's defined anyway.
Huh?
I don't believe it's defined anyway. I can't.
I don't know, but
I
again,
can't find it.
it was my determination, it was my thought process here that it wasn't an expansion of pre-existing
Well, the
non-conforming use,
reason I'm
that's the
asking
end of the
is
statement.
because the leeway was a little sleepy motel with maybe 6 rooms. And since the zoning code, and I shouldn't say since the zoning code, but since the zoning code was in effect, did they expand on those other 2 buildings that are on the property, those other 2 structures?
Since the zoning code has been in
That's
effect,
a question that I want
I'm
to,
trying.
ask.
Since the zoning code has been in effect, to my knowledge, prior owners received a special use permit to operate an RV campground there. Outside of that, I don't know that they've asked permission to do anything different than what's there right now.
I believe those external structures were pre-existing.
No, the RVs?
No,
the two
other two
opposite
buildings.
Yeah,
sides
I
of the
believe
detached.
that all of the structures there predate code. But they did receive special permit approval early 2000s, I think, for that RV park. Essentially, it was an RV park. They had the Airstreams down there, if you remember.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yes.
Okay.
So you guys can discuss 11658, you can disagree with my interpretation, but I don't have, all I can tell you is what I base the decision on. So you're asking me for how I applied 11658A 1 and 3, and I believe I've answered that question.
You didn't
Okay.
apply it.
I took a course.
Huh?
Yeah.
You didn't apply it because she said it didn't.
Correct, but I explained why,
Unless-
so I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
So the second one
Would you
was,
disqualify? Sorry.
the second one was my letter from September 25th, which I provided.
That's this letter.
Providing names of motels, hotels, or lodges in our community that are operating with a special use permit or tent permits for wedding venues. To my knowledge, there is nobody operating an event use with a special use permit. It's not a special permit use. I can give you guys these before you leave, but these are all the permits that I can find that have been issued: tent permits, occupant permits, operating permits, and a building permit for a permanent event use building. Those are all there. You asked for them, and there they are. Just took me a minute. Provide any historical context for precedent for how this section has been enforced by my office in the past. To my knowledge, no zoning enforcement officer has ever issued a violation against anybody for an event use. I can't find any proof of that. I have not. Frankly, historically, what people are doing is coming to the building department to get operating permits for the tents, and they're receiving those operating permits and having their events.
Referring to these other venues, you're saying?
Correct.
For example, Urban College, okay.
Urban Cowboy and Foxfire are using operating permits when they put up their tents. And in 2017, when Full Moon replaced one of their permanent tents with a structure that was permanent, and the listed use was clearly events, temporary transient use. It's in the permit, which I'll give you. reception tent, reception pavilion, and it's right there.
But do those permits allow for those tents to be permanent structure?
It depends on how they're issued. That's for a building inspector to say. The operating permits that you have copies of in here are for temporary tents, for tents that come up and they're gone in less than a week. That's what all of these operating permits
Okay.
are for. There's one tent permit that I think was for temporary tent. I don't get to be a part of operating permits, so I don't typically see them, but they're sitting right there. And the last one was based on your experience, how does this provision apply to the specific circumstances of the above appeal? That's the one I answered a little more this morning. So my response to that this morning at 10 o'clock was, if what you're asking about specifics as they pertain to the site plan submitted by Leeway, it's my belief that that isn't an issue here. That's not what this board is meant to be reviewing. To my knowledge, this board's responsibility is to decide if my determination that the event use is allowed when accessory to hotel motel lodge development is correct or not. It's not a decision specific to any single development, but rather the broader concept of the use itself. So if in that question you're asking me for specifics about the leeways submitted in a now approved site plan, I don't believe that's relevant to your review.
Well, I think we'll decide what's relevant and not.
You asked,
Thank you.
and I'm answering.
Well, I'm just making a statement,
That's fine.
Thank you.
just like you.
I'm just trying to make sure that these have been answered to the best of my ability. So those were the 5 questions. And I have answered them to the best of my ability in these emails and in these statements. But if you want me to expand upon any of them, please, all you have to do is ask. Here, email me.
Can you show me in the code where it says event use?
No, I can't. Of course I can't.
Well, first of
This isn't a
all,
public hearing.
no, it's not, but if somebody wants to speak, I think we should allow them to speak.
I just want to make that
Do
clear.
you guys have any other questions or comments before we allow them to speak? Sir, you want to step up?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Charlie Gottlieb. I'm a land use counsel for Perpetual Space LLC, from the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah in Albany. We were made aware of the appeal. I did email over a response to the appeal that hopes to answer some of the questions you've raised this evening.
This is your answer to the appeal?
This is, the first of a few.
Sure this isn't Verizon?
I used to do cell phone tower work, and I'm glad I don't anymore.
Another issue we have.
A few things I just want to say right off the bat before I just summarize, because I understand you're not going to. I wanted you to digest that before the public hearing.
Yes, we appreciate that, thank you.
I do highly recommend that this board have its counsel at the next meeting.
That's been discussed.
I think that it would be very helpful for the board. I've heard some things this evening that are not completely legally accurate. I know you're likely not to take my word with a grain of salt, but certainly Mr. Gailey, your attorney, is well seasoned.
Okay. Thank you.
And a few things, I would just ask that the operating permits that Grace has and the emails be placed into the administrative record. So we have that in the official administrative record. And a few things, I would like to quickly summarize this for you, but it's at your pleasure.
Well, we haven't had an opportunity to look at it yet. Maybe you could summarize that at the public hearing?
It's completely up to you. I'd be happy to. And I've heard already some of your comments that, I can also be prepared to discuss at a public hearing as well.
The location of the tent, is that fixed at this particular time for this particular permit? The location of the tent?
So the location of your tent is the 60 feet by 40 feet that's there.
Along
Right.
the river, adjacent to the river?
It's not adjacent to the river, but it is, closer to the river than the existing structures. So, you'll see the river's all the way over here on the left. You have at least a 100-foot buffer from the river, and you're probably over another 100 feet until you get to the event tent. But we can provide you with the exact setback number. Importantly, there's a difference between non-conforming use and non-conforming structures. This is the leeway, its existing buildings are non-conforming structures. So you can add structures, but they have to be in compliance with the zoning code, the setbacks and so forth. The tent is completely compliant with the zoning code and setbacks. One other thing quickly, you keep referencing, where is the event use noted in the zoning code? Your code's definition of an accessory use is an accessory use or structure incidental to the permitted or special permit use and located on the same lot, not otherwise specified herein.
Can you identify the reg? As you would know?
That's in the definitions, 116-4. And so the fact that it's not defined and it's not a permitted use in any zoning district furthers the argument that it's actually accessory. Another thing I wanted to highlight this evening, and obviously we agree with Grace, we would like this appeal dismissed, but I have provided case law in that letter that demonstrates that, let's say you do have a non-conforming use. An accessory use to that non-conforming use is permitted. It's not another non-conforming use or a new commercial enterprise that I heard this evening. It's a continuation of that non-conforming use. And
It seems to be an interpretation. I couldn't find any specific language.
it's in cases.
We are not obligated to rule on previous cases, you understand that?
This board this is why you should have your attorney here. This board, when you're in your appeal jurisdiction, you're what's known as a quasi-judicial board, meaning you do have to follow legal precedent. And there's also prior precedent of this town. You are also under an obligation to follow prior precedent of the town. That's a case called Knight v. Melkin. It went to the highest court in the state of New York. And you know, related to the expansion, there are cases, and there's one from the town of Gardner, and there's one elsewhere, but I always use the racetrack analogy. Let's say you have a non-conforming racetrack from 1920, 1930, it had 2 cars going around it. 1990, it has 45 cars going around it. It's not an expansion of the non-conforming use. The use is a racetrack. It's still being used as a racetrack. Here, the use, it's actually a lodge, because if you look at the definition of a hotel, it's not a hotel because you don't open the door to the inside. It's not a motel because there's more than one building on the property. It's actually a lodge. That use of a lodge, right, the event tent, it's still the lodge use. It's just an accessory to that. And that's a very complicated legal analysis that I hope to make clearer as we go forward.
That's an interpretation.
If the accessory use is subordinate and incidental to a motor court or a motel, if that use is greater than the principal use, that creates a problem.
Sure, and luckily, and this doesn't happen very often in the legal world, there is case law on that exact issue from the town of Olive. And what that board was, and they went through an accessory use test. And the reason, and this is again laid out in the letter, but very quickly, following all the case law that I could find, the reasons the event tent is accessory is, 1, the accessory use is located on the same lot as the Leeway Lodge. There are no event uses permitted anywhere in the town, which per this town's definition of an accessory use means it can be classified as accessory. The events are facilitated by Leeway staff. There's going to be only 13 events per year. That's a planning board condition. And in one of my exhibits, I did all the planning board conditions so you can see them. That means it's a seasonal use, not a full-time use compared to the lodge. There are other hotels, motels, and lodges in town that we have the occupancy permits there for. The tent is temporary. Goes up before the event, comes down after the event. It's not a permanent structure. There's no land disturbance. There's no fill in the floodplain. It's not defined as a structure. I will look into that article too, because that did come up. And at the planning board, they noted that that was a prior version of the code.
Prior version of the code?
Yeah, so there was one member of the public who noted that the word structure was in the definition, or the word tent was in the definition of a structure.
It is now.
I couldn't find
But
it.
your current version of the
I have
code,
it right here.
I confirmed
I would love to see.
with the
it, 'cause I
Department of
can't
State that it is not in there.
It's in the code that I took off the website. I'll let you know that. And if tent was taken out of the code, it would have had to have an amendment by the town board and a public hearing to do that. So I'm not quite sure where this came from, but I do have a copy of it. So-
Well, according to E-Code, which is this town's official publisher of its zoning code, it's not in there. We even looked at the books during the planning board meeting, and it wasn't in there. So those are the things I just wanted to get off my chest quickly. Again, I do suggest you have Mr. Gailey here at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll certainly consider that. Thank you.
For clarity's sake,
Yes,
that was dated, this appeal should be thrown out. I would like the section of code though that regards tents,
I
because
just pass it down, Chris.
Yeah, I will.
Another thing that I wanted to make this board and the town generally aware of, tomorrow we are going to submit a FOIL request for every single record that applies to this property, because there is a lot of guessing as to what happened previously, when it was built. I went on the county GIS system, I couldn't find much there. So I think a review of exactly what and when and how this property got to be this property is really important for the record.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
so.
think
too.
historically there been some lapses in the record for one reason or another.
Yep, yeah, it's always the case. And I'll add that when our next submission.
Okay, thank you for the report.
Yes, thank you so much. And I emailed that to Olivia, so she.
I have not seen it, but yes, I will ask her, she's not in. If you could send that to me so I can get it on the website, because I'm sure people will want to look.
Yeah, I'll email it to you tomorrow.
This specifically, you found this definition in chapter 59. This is not a chapter of code that this board or myself.
I don't know where it came from.
No, it's right here, chapter 59. It's for
No, I
mass,
get that, but I don't know where this came from. It's
it's
not
in the,
Shandaken, I mean,
yes,
it's
it's
Article 2
in the code book.
definitions, and everything is similar, except in the code book today, tense is omitted.
No, it's not. So this is from chapter 59. It's not from the zoning code, but it is from the town of Shandaken code book. This is the section of code that has to do with the town board's issuance of mass gathering permits, which is gatherings of 500 people or more. So this is inside those definitions, but this is not a section of code that I enforce and not one that you all enforce either. So the definitions that, in my opinion, you should be looking at come from chapter 116. So I would reference, were I you, I would reference those, but I certainly cannot tell you what to do.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say publicly?
Mark, I just, Chairman and honorable members of the ZBA, appreciate Jeannie Maloney's comments for appeal. And I want to say it is supported by many, many residents. It's difficult, as you know, to get people out to meetings. People in this town are working for a living, taking care of their babies, babysitting, taking care of their elders. But there are many, many people who are extremely concerned about this issue. So I'd like the board to reflect that. And I appreciate the intellect of this board to be a board, recognizing that that's why Shandaken has boards, so that we don't rely on the bias of one individual one way or another. And so I thank you for your intellect in this matter and look forward to a future hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome, Wayne. We do serve uncompensated, and we serve because we care about the community, we try to make the right decisions. I've said from the first day I took this chair that our board operates, and I think I've by an agreement for the rest of the zoning board that this board operates primarily on two premises. First of all, preserving the character of the community. Secondly, enabling the economic development of the community. Usually those two work in consort. In this case, they're in loggerheads. So we need to
Yes.
make some heavy.
It's perhaps much like having a rubber smelting plant placed in Phoenicia. We need the economy, we need the employment, we need the, but there are very serious issues at hand here, very serious issues. This is in an R1 residential floodplain district. Common sense should prevail here.
Well, unfortunately, I think common sense, although it's a good idea, I think law trumps common sense. And that's what we have to follow.
And we are obligated.
That may be the case sometimes, but
Other times it is.
the major sections of the town zoning law were read aloud here. If you take advantage of reading it or seeing it on the YouTube last month. And the general premise of our code is protection of the community. And in fact, I was here many years ago, we went through this comprehensive plan business. What's a comprehensive plan? It's looking at the community as a whole. And I remember the testimony in many, many cases in those hearings that we had. And it was said by a person that comprehensive plans become dust collectors, and they do, because they sit on the shelf with a lot of theory in them, but they don't maintain the heart of the town. It doesn't come out of them, it doesn't jump off the shelf.
I know where the comprehensive town plan is currently being rewritten.
Yes.
I'm on the committee, and hopefully it's not gonna sit on the shelf.
I wish you well, I wish you well. I sat on many of them, but you understand what I'm saying there.
I understand.
Theoretically, lots of good ideas and lots of good intentions come out of them. But when you get to this stage of the game that we're playing right now, yes, you're right. You have very serious issues to consider. And I appreciate the obligation on your shoulders very, very much.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, some of this language is open to interpretation, and I guess that's our job to interpret it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does anybody else have something to say?
Yeah, I would like to offer, because I read all of that, and it did cite a lot of things in the code, my letter, it was to you guys, but I wasn't able to input it. I'd be happy to get you a copy of that, email it to you in the next couple of weeks, so you can look at what I have to say too, not just what Mr. Gottlieb has to say. And also, if you would like to come and visit and check out my home, my site, my property. I know a lot of times you come and you check out where things are going on to see with your own eyes what's going on.
Well, I did that this afternoon.
Oh, you did?
I told you I did.
Yeah, oh, I thought you said you knocked on my door, but I couldn't, I was working on something. So you already, did you already walk my property?
Yeah, I don't think your doorbell is working.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Did you also walk the Leeway property?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Did
good.
you,
I'm very happy to hear
did
that.
you walk the Gutman property, Mark?
No, I did not.
Well, many trout fishermen have. My dad always let people come down and have access to the stream. It abuts the Leeway property down by the stream.
Would you welcome us to do a site visit on your property?
I'm sorry?
Would you welcome us to do a site visit?
Oh, absolutely. If you come down to see Jeannie, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome to go down and back. And it clearly abuts the property. I'm very familiar with the flood situation down there and what can happen. And believe me, modifications would have to be made to do what's being proposed here.
Does your property extend to the river?
We've lost a great deal of it in the floods. We probably lost every bit of the width of this room from the embankment as a result of, well, 3 major floods during my tenure as town supervisor.
Yes, yeah.
We lost 17 bridges here in this town one year. People do not realize the devastation of that water and how quickly it can rise.
You're referring to Irene?
There was talk about RVs down back at Charlie's Motel. You know, they're gone. Where are they? Down at the bottom of the reservoir somewhere, I imagine.
This is a big concern for me, is how much of this is in the floodplain. People who are buying into this property who have not witnessed Hurricane Irene like we have, or some of these other events, these heavy events that affect property, affect lives, they're happening more often, they're happening more frequently, they're happening more severely, they're happening more without warning, and the financing has been trashed for our weather forecasting capabilities. So, all that adds up to a unpredictable situation for these landowners.
Yeah, you have a very tough, unique decision here. It's very, well, I'm not so sure it's terribly unique, but if you take a look at what happened in Texas, many people say, how did that ever get approved? Where those young kids got washed away in the camp. Yeah, how did that ever get approved?
It's Texas, it's Asheville, North Carolina. This has happened 3 or 4 times in
Yeah.
Pakistan. It's happening in northern India on a regular basis. It's happened in Portugal. It happened in Spain. It's happening all over the country, almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen here sooner or later. Everybody just needs to
In a
understand.
camp, in a campsite in Colorado, was it? And we camped in a gorge. And in that gorge, there was a monument, almost like a military monument, built to the campers that were lost in that flood. Well, when you look at the gorge, you say, I can see how that happened.
Which gorge?
Oh, I forgot which one it was, Mark. There was great trout fishing there, I remember that.
Yeah.
I think it was in Colorado. But they built a monument to the people that were lost in that flood.
I drive around these gorgeous fly fishing, I see these signs where there's a triangle, and then there's some little waves at the bottom of the triangle, and there's a stick figure walking up the triangle. It took me a while to figure out what they actually meant by that.
It's a wash.
And what they mean was if you see water rising, run uphill as fast as you
That's
can,
right.
because that's how fast some of these events happen. That's not Democrat or Republican, that's not conservative or liberal, that's a fact that we're.
Well, your people have an intimate understanding of this beautiful town that we live in. We are a diamond, there's no question about it. We are in demand, that's why you're seeing these kinds of things happen. There's a lot of money to be made off of a pristine area like us. Why people need that money so much, I'm not sure. Over the importance of what we have here in the Catskill State Forest Preserve. You know, I know, between New York City and the state, this town is close to 80% preserved lands. I look out of any window of my house, I'm never going to see a house on those mountains. I like that. So do a lot of people. And we like the peace and quiet. We like the tranquility, and we like the speciality of the area. It's important to all of us, extremely important. And to see it spoiled for $1 is kind of incredible to me. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one question for the attorney. The zoning code for 1.5 residential zone district, the noise level is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, and it's only 53 decibels. So
Correct.
how are you going to deal with the noise level after 7 o'clock in
Well,
the evening?
First, I will say the only jurisdiction this board has right now is one of a pure legal question.
Yeah, no,
You have no site plan authority, you have no secret authority whatsoever.
I know that. Just a question I thought that maybe
Sure.
you could answer
So-
without going into the legal parts of what we can do and can't do.
Yeah, that's my job. How the planning board handled that was they mandated that the leeway owners put up noise monitors. So those noise monitors will continuously monitor what decibel limits they're at throughout an event. The planning board also, at the idea of the leeway, is a 1-year look-back period. So after 1 year of operation with events, so that'll be December 2026, I think the resolution will say, we will go back, we will assess how are things operating. But that code is very strict as far as noise goes. The town has the ability to enforce the environmental standards, including the noise ordinance against the leeway. Those monitors are there to ensure that if there's a complaint made to the town, the leeway gets called. You check the noise monitors. If it's high, you turn it down. If the leeway doesn't cooperate for whatever reason, or there's some event that's too loud, enforcement orders and police involvement can happen.
All good. The town has the authority to enforce these noise ordinances. We do not have the ability. We do not have. My understanding is that there has to be a special noise monitor that is issued by the state and has to be calibrated by the state every 3 months. And apparently the town is not willing to go through that expense. So according to our local police department, we do not currently have the ability to monitor. Just so you know.
I believe also the sheriff's office has the ability to enforce zoning provisions as well. You know, that's something I can look into and respond at the public hearing as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
I have one other issue that I want to bring up, if it's okay.
Sure, Jeannie, can you come up to the microphone,
Sure.
please? Yeah, good.
The last thing I wanted to say was, at the planning board meeting.
Turn the microphone so the
Yeah,
Sorry.
use the mic.
At the planning board meeting last Wednesday, Cliff Rubofo, who's the chair, he said the main reason why he disapproved the leeway site plan was because an accessory use is not, it's permitted in a lot of places, but it's not permitted in the floodway. So I just wanted to remind you, as an environmentally conscious people, that this is a big deal. We're addressing accessory use. Accessory use cannot be in a floodway. That's like a big deal. That's like a major point here. So they can say whatever they want, but if it's not allowed, it's not allowed in the code. So why are we even talking about it?
Apparently the floodplain manager is the one on it because apparently you have to do an assessment of downstream effects, what you're doing upstream, and it was adjudged by the floodplain manager, who's not here today, that there were no downstream effects. Is that correct, Council?
Yeah, that is correct. So, development is defined by FEMA, and so it includes any time you're doing ground disturbance, you're having structure, impervious surface, or fill in a floodway. Because this project is a temporary structure that's coming up and down, no impervious surfaces, no ground disturbance, the floodplain administrator said that no floodplain development permit is needed. That is also, again, precedent throughout the town because I imagine there are a lot of accessory uses which are a shed for a residential home that's in a floodway. That if the town goes against that and makes new precedent, there will be a lot of enforcement that this town will have to catch up on.
Maybe there should be. So Jeannie, your argument is that if the pit is in the floodway, that's why it should be denied.
Yeah, well, this whole, it's kind of like, this is why, what Cliff said was he denied, he basically said he wasn't going to approve this site plan because of that.
Understood.
So he must have had some reason for doing that. I mean,
Well, several reasons, yes. So
yes, he wouldn't have done that if it wasn't true.
are you saying if they move the tent out of the floodplain?
I don't think they have the ability to move it out because it's such a narrow, you were there, it's such a narrow place that they really don't have a lot of options. This was discussed last week about, it's such a narrow thing to try to move the tent, they really can't because of all the setbacks and all of that.
They have some broad lawns available that would accommodate.
I don't think they want to do that. You can
No.
ask them if they want to
No,
do
they
that,
don't.
but I'm just saying,
They do.
you know,
Okay.
and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we hold a public hearing on the application for an interpretation of the zoning code
Okay.
11658-1 and 116-10.
I second that motion, but before we take a vote, we want the public to understand this is an obligation that we are obligated to hold a public hearing before we make any decisions, to give the public an opportunity for input, either positive or negative, which we are obligated to consider, but not necessarily vote on. May I have a vote for maybe a public hearing? All in favor? Aye. Aye. So
What time, guys?
So public hearing for next month.
What time?
It's gonna take a while.
6:30.
6:30.
You're gonna be here?
That'll be November 19th.
Hunting season, I don't know if I can make it.
It's a formal, I think. Okay, November 19th, 6:30 will be a public hearing for the public, and notices will be sent out to adjacent landowners, some of whom are in the room, notifying them of this public hearing and inviting them to participate. Okay, anything else? No old business, I don't think. Any new business? Make a motion.
I want to offer just a tiny piece of clarity here because I think it got lost, that this determination that you have copies of for me was not specific to this project. Just be very
General
careful.
interpretation
It was
of the
just,
code.
right, which is what's being asked of you as well. This was not specific to this
We
project.
realize that our
I just-
interpretation isn't based on your letter, but I just.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
It was kind of the catalyst that pushed this forward a little bit.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
No.
That's not at all, that's not at all the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that that letter is not specific to any project. It is just my determination of the intended use that happens to be specific to the leeway. It was not specific to this project.
As per your reading of the code.
As per my reading of the code and my
Okay,
research,
thank you.
it was not specific to this. The opinion can't be biased because it is simply the opinion that I have gathered after doing an extensive amount of research.
Understood. Thank you for your good work. You take a lot of grief, but apparently,
I don't mind the grief, I just want to make sure that my intent is clear.
yeah.
My intent is only to interpret to the best of my ability.
Right.
That's all I can do.
Thank you for that clarification.
I just want to point, we own old business?
Do you have old business?
Yeah, with Grace.
With me?
Again, you sent us a letter this morning stating that variances will no longer, commercial variances will no longer come from the planning board. Did it come from your office?
No, the letter was that they would initially come from me, and should the planning board require variances outside of what I asked for, that they are well within their rights to do so.
Because I just wanted to let you know that legally you don't have the power or the authority to say where variance is going to come from, that come to this board.
I didn't, I said that going forward, I
Going
will,
forward, you said it's better for the town, better
Yes.
for our board.
yes.
You don't
My
have-
statement was that going forward, I would review applications for commercial
I
development.
just
to
want
come
you to know
before
that you don't have the authority to
I
tell
need to
this
finish
board
the thought.
where variances are coming from.
I need
They
to
come
finish
from
the thought,
zoning
because
board,
I
or they
allowed
come
you
from
the
applicant.
opportunity to finish yours, and you need to allow me the opportunity to finish mine. That letter stated that going forward, because there was a little bit of confusion about exactly where applications for variance could come from following the review in 2024. The letter was simply to clarify procedurally the way that my office would be treating variances going forward, specific to commercial development. Specific to commercial development, my intention going forward is to review the applications as they come before the planning board and make my list of any necessary variances they have to get prior to the planning board consideration of their project. Should the
It's
planning
reasonable,
board,
but that's
and
not what the letter said.
it is absolutely what the letter said, and should the planning board make a determination after they receive those variances, when they do present, that additional variances are required, of course the planning board can ask for those variances to be given. That is certainly fair.
So, yeah, so we already had a vote to adjourn the meeting. Unless anybody else has anything else to say, I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for your public participation. This is very important. We do want to hear what you guys have to say.
Stay well.